Hi, everyone. Welcome to the March edition of TOKY Office Hours. And we have a special um, TOKY Office Hours today with some additional guests who we're going to introduce in just a moment. But thank you all for being here. Of course, we are recording this for our YouTube channel. But if you have questions, there will be time for a Q&A at the end. So I think without further ado, um, let's go ahead and get started, and we'll introduce our guests. One of our um, participants, Julie, just said in the chat a little plug. Hope I see everyone in Vegas. That's for Amplify in July. We have a great lineup. So thank you, Julie, for the plug. And we definitely would love to see you all. I know TOKY will be there, and I'm certain Open Asset will be there as well. And I think that's a good time for us to start with some introductions. So, Melissa, if you would start with a quick introduction of yourself.
Sure. My name is Melissa Allen. I'm an interactive director at TOKY, and I'm joining today because I worked on the project that we're going to talk about for our clients at Martin Martin.
And I think that's a perfect segue to Patrick.
Yeah, my name is Patrick Trahern. I'm communications manager at Martin Martin, a civil structural engineering firm. I've been with the company for about 23 years now, and we just recently went through efforts to redo our website using Open Asset and Toki's help.
Awesome. And from Open Asset, Eleni.
Amazing. My name's Eleni. I'm a customer success manager at Open Asset. I work with AEC firms with their digital asset management, firms like Martin and Martin. So excited to be here today.
Awesome. So I think it would be good for us to have just a little bit of a grounding in this project that we're going to talk about because it is an interesting case study. Mel, would you start and just give us the high level, and then we'll get Patrick's take on kind of what was driving things from the Martin Martin side.
Sure. So, as I said, Martin Martin came to us, and we're fortunate enough to partner with them on their website. As is the case with a lot of AEC sites, the biggest part of the site is the project section, wanting to be able to show current and potential clients, current and potential employees, projects, what kind of work you do, where you do work, and all that fun stuff. And when you're thinking about it in terms of a website, there could be hundreds of projects featured on the site. They have to get on there somewhere. So a lot of times we go through our process with clients of trying to get them to organize their project data in order to prepare to upload on the site. And it just takes a lot of time. And a lot of our clients are already working with Open Asset, digital asset management system. And so what was really exciting on this project was learning that there was an actual plugin that they had already developed for WordPress that would streamline that whole process of having project data in Open Asset also connect to the website so that everything is up to date. They don't have to manually update projects, images, data, things like that. It's all sort of a bridge from one system to another, which is completely not only a time saver, but also great for, ongoing time savings and keeping the site updated.
That's awesome. And Patrick, can you tell us a little bit about what was driving both the website and the integration?
Sure. So we were already looking at Open Asset before that because we needed new storage options for all of the digital assets. So we had all of the photography that we had on our projects, and one of the big sales, one of the important parts of it that was part of the process of deciding to move forward with Open Asset was the fact that it had this connector to be able to update project information. Which is what we use it for. But I know, and Eleni can speak to this as well. I know that there's other things that it can also update related to websites. But for us, it was really important on the projects because of, as Melissa stated, the number of projects that we wanted to put on our website. And so that was part of the importance of looking at Open Asset and then also incorporated it in to the website when we did our redo.
Yeah, that's great. So, Eleni, maybe you could tell us a little bit, for those who are not familiar with Open Asset, tell us a little bit about what it is, and then, what problem is this solving for AEC firms?
Yeah, definitely. So, Open Asset is a digital asset management library designed specifically for AEC firms. So, kind of at the baseline, as you guys were mentioning, it's to store all of your project and employee information, whether that's files or data. But then beyond that, it also helps in your workflows with, generating CVs or resumes, project sheets, working in InDesign. There's a lot of other kind of nuances to Open Asset, ultimately just helping you work more efficiently. Um, and on the topic of working more efficiently, one thing that we were hearing from, we have over 1,000 AEC clients, and one thing we were constantly hearing was these struggles with managing their websites. There were really like two main struggles that we were hearing. One of them was just being how time consuming it is to update your website. As you guys know, it can be a really big lift to keep that data up to date. Um, and then the other one was, firms were creating custom integrations between Open Asset and their websites, which again, extremely time consuming, but also not cost effective. So those were kind of like the driving factors between or that led us to creating the WordPress connector. Yeah, just to work more efficiently ultimately.
Yeah. So Patrick, maybe if we go back to you for just a second, can you talk about you're thinking about Open Asset at the same time that you're thinking about the website? Was it directly because of the website, or was this really something bigger across all of the marketing efforts that Martin's doing?
It was definitely bigger. That's a really good question. Open Asset, a couple of factors. One of the factors is that uh, traditionally we have kept all of our assets on a server that's located at our headquarters in Colorado. And they, because of the number of files that we're now storing, being able to maintain that server, keep up backups is
Mm,
becoming cost prohibitive.
yeah.
And so they definitely started to look into cloud based storage. Another factor related to that, and probably more important in my eyes, is being able to view your files quickly. Um, when files are stored on a server, at least in for me, I'm not located in the same state as our headquarters, and probably a lot of people aren't post COVID. Many more remote employees, and when you try to, at least for us, when we would try to go in and find files in a folder system on a server, trying to even get thumbnails to show up is it takes forever. It's
Hmm.
almost torture. And so, looking at something that was cloud based that would provide those thumbnails much quicker and allow you to connect to multiple programs, not just a website, but in Open Assets. Uh, for their program, we can connect directly into many different programs, including InDesign, which is where we produce a lot of our proposals. And so, being able to, incorporate it in and be able to see our assets quickly was a really big factor for what we wanted to do. And the timing was just great because we were also wanting to do a brand new website. And
Yeah.
so the fact that that plugin came out at the same time was kind of serendipitous.
Yeah. No, that's good. Eleni, before we get into the integration of the plugin, which is what I really want to talk about today, can you, in addition to the things that Patrick was mentioning that were the value that Open Asset or a digital asset management system of any kind would provide, what are the other things that you're seeing as drivers for firms who are leveraging Open Asset?
Yeah, definitely. Patrick did a great job explaining some of the big hitters there. I think one thing too is just the collaboration aspect, which you kind of touched on, Patrick, with not being located where your colleagues are located. But I think that's huge with Open Asset, being able to work on, similar documents or share images, whether it's with other Open Asset users or even outside of the firm as well. And then I think we've been investing really heavily into AI tools as well at Open Asset. So, getting into how we can help with the bid workflow and, surfacing past images using an AI search, like things like that are becoming more and more relevant. Yeah.
Cool. So we have Open Asset or a digital asset management system like it. It's containing a sort of the source of truth for all of the images and other assets that we're controlling through it. And we have this challenge, Eleni, as you said, with a lot of clients wanting to be able to integrate that into the website, which is where this connector plugin comes from. So can you tell us a little bit about what does the plugin actually do?
Yeah, definitely. So as we've talked about, in Open Asset, you can store things like projects and their project data. You can store employees, employee data, boilerplate text, all of your marketing ready images and videos. Like it's really a centralized source of truth for storing all of that. So essentially, what the connector does is it allows you to quickly push that directly from Open Asset to your website, reducing your need to copy and paste data, maintain it in different places, like essentially, and you guys know how it works, but you can just flip a switch in Open Asset and that data is pushed to WordPress for you to use.
Yeah. So thinking about the specifics of this project, so we're building a website and we know that we want to use Open Asset as a source of truth. We have this connector plugin as an option for that. Um, can you talk, Patrick, a little bit about were there additional specific problems that this connector ultimately solves for you?
Sure. Honestly, as anybody that's in a website, and Melissa can attest to this too, content is the toughest part of producing any website, collecting that content and then getting it uploaded. And so, one of the big things that this connector really solved for us was speed.
Mm,
So, currently on our website, we have 230 projects, which is probably too many. But we are very diversified as a company, and so there's a lot of different things, a lot of different services that we offer, and each one wanted project experience on it, and
mm,
so that's why we have so many. Previously, when we had redone the website, we managed everything in an Excel document, and as mentioned previously, maybe when it comes to images, trying to fit them onto your website, you have to resize them. And so you basically have your list of projects, you have your descriptions, all the data that you want to put in for each project as part of this Excel spreadsheet. But then every image that you'd want to share would need to be pulled into Photoshop, resized down, and the time involved in all of that is extreme.
mm.
And it was with when we redid our website 10 years prior. With this particular plugin, and this is kind of a little bit of a commercial for Open Asset, Eleni, is that we did the 230 projects, uploading them in 3 days. We got them all uploaded to the website via this connector. It was some prep time involved. Obviously, we still needed to create a list, but the time saving was tremendous. And then we want to continue using that. In fact, currently right now, I've got uh, at least 10 projects ready to go via the Open Asset connector. And it's almost ready to sync to be able to just upload those 10 projects and then quickly go through them when they're on the website. So the biggest benefit for sure was the speed involved in being able to get those things uploaded to the website.
Yeah, Mel, does that resonate with you? You've worked on a lot of AEC websites, and I know we talk a lot about content entry. Can you talk about the
Sure.
difference?
Yeah, I think to Patrick's point, when he was speaking about resizing images in Photoshop, I think there's that piece sort of times maybe a multiplier because sometimes clients have to size different sizes of the same image for different areas of the site, which, just to get it to look how they want in different areas. And with Open Asset, it's added to your media library for you to use anywhere. It's not hosted on Open Asset. It's not pulling data like if you embed a YouTube video or something. So that savings as well, not having to, resize an image multiple times for multiple uses is also really helpful as well. But I mean, there's no overstating how long content entry takes on a website. There's just, I try to overstate it every project that I do, and it's still, it's just a time consuming process. And as Patrick said, there's still prep work with Open Asset. You have to pick the projects, you have to pick the images you want. You have to, if you want to pull in content, you've got to make sure the content exists in Open Asset. But the time savings for it for not only the initial upload, but as Patrick said, he's getting ready to upload more projects ongoing. There's just no comparison for it.
Well, and it seems like there's an additional multiplier effect because now all that content lives in one place. And Patrick, I think you were talking about the InDesign templates and things that you have for project sheets and things that you're going to use in proposals and what have you. So now you're essentially entering content in one place, making it available in multiple places.
That's exactly right. Yes, to be able to have it all stored in one location. We have one of our graphics designer at our office. It gets on us all the time about having multiple of the same image stored in different folders, and the excess of what that is. And Open Asset helps to take care of that.
Yeah, and make sure that you have the approved image that you're going to use. Mel,
Exactly right.
can you talk a little bit about the development process? So you design the website, and then we have to take that into the development phase, and that's where we're integrating this connector. So, were there any challenges along the way or learnings specific to the development process? And I'm going to ask that same question in a couple of different ways, but let's start with actually building the site and integrating what was a new tool from Open Asset. I think that Martin's website is one of the first that's actually implemented the connector. So I imagine there was some learning along the way.
Yeah, I think, just with anything new, there's, reviewing the documentation and kind of seeing it, live on other sites gets you so far. It's when you start implementing it that you really kind of figure out how it works. The initial implementation went well. I think, where we kind of went, a little bit beyond that was in the case of Martin, we're pulling over all of those images and data into their website. They also want to be able to add custom information that maybe doesn't live in Open Asset. At the time of the launch of Martin, the video capability wasn't in place with Open Asset yet. There were perhaps renderings or other documents that they wanted to add. So we pulled over all of that information, and then through our development, had it sort of pre-populate the draft of a project page. So everything that was populated, you could see in a draft, just as if you had hit new project in WordPress and created it yourself. And then Patrick and his team could go in and edit anything they wanted, add anything they want, reorder anything they want. So that was kind of where, that was sort of our challenge in trying to figure out how do we keep the benefits of this tool, but also give Martin the ability to customize that we knew that they wanted. And everything was pretty seamless. I think, from going into pulling over the images, everything came over correctly. We figured out kind of, troubleshooting if a project got, pulled over accidentally, if someone selected it and then maybe later someone was like, oh, never mind, we don't want that project. How do we delete that without kind of compromising the integrity of the sync and everything like that? But all in all, I think, Patrick, it was pretty seamless once we kind of figured out how to pre-populate everything for you to be able to customize. Would you agree?
Oh,
I would agree with that.
Good.
Um,
Oh,
I'm Go ahead. Sorry.
sorry. Yes, no, I would agree with that. Sorry, Arkansas bandwidth. Um, uh, yes, I would agree with that. I think we definitely had some hiccups, but you guys were always here, Melissa, especially you and your development team. We're always here to be able to try to figure out solutions for that. So I think the process was relatively smooth. I mean, based on previous work that we've done, 10 years ago when we redid our site, it was so much smoother.
Yeah, I'm wondering, and this is a little bit of a jump ball question, probably for Patrick and Mel. Were there any limitations or trade-offs in making the decision to integrate Open Asset that you had to say, okay, we're not gonna be able to do that thing, but it's okay because of all the benefits that we're getting over here.
I mean, I can speak to one aspect of it that we definitely made a little trade-off on that we kind of a workaround.
Mhm.
And Mel, you touched on it a little bit related to the customization of what shows up on a site.
Hmm.
So Open Asset is set up, and it makes total sense why. Open Asset is set up to update automatically or project data or
Mhm.
personnel data when it comes to the site. So let's say you have a project that changes its name, which happens all the time in our industry. And you go to your database, you change the name in your database, that automatically gets pushed out to Open Asset, which then, when you do the next syncs, would get updated. And that would work perfectly. And it makes total sense why you'd have that. Unfortunately, we couldn't do that syncing. And the reason is because a lot of our information is potentially in our database confidential. Maybe there's a client that's confidential, and we want that client's information to be pushed out to the website, but we don't want that confidential information on those select few projects to be pushed out each time.
Mm.
And so we had to turn off that functionality of that auto syncing and updating so that we could have that customization within our site to where once we push out that sync, we can go into before it's public, before the pages is public. We can edit out that confidential information. It's still in our database. It's still within Open Asset, but before that page is launched, we can change that data. And so that's one of the workarounds that we had to do. That Toki and Melissa and her team were able to do for us, so we can still have that quick speed, but we
Hmm.
can still customize as well.
Yeah. So, I think folks who are watching this video, either with us live or watch this later, might be wondering, what are some of the hard won lessons that you guys, you've blazed a trail a little bit. So, what do you think that someone implementing this in their website, uh, what would you want to tell them? What should they know?
Do you wanna go first, Mel, or
Yeah, I think it's probably the same spiel I give to everybody related to content entry is preparation is 90% of the work.
Mm,
It's just this time you're preparing your projects in open asset because and I'll stop talking and give it to Patrick since he's more of a day-to-day open asset user, but I imagine, over a period of time you have projects in open asset. You're probably not going to be redesigning your site soon after those are entered. So you have projects that maybe were added 2, 3, 4, 5 years before you're going to redesign your site. Who knows how accurate they were? Who knows who entered them? Who knows if they're complete? So going back, making sure all the data you want to import is complete, choosing which images you want to sync. Open Asset was great, and helping us sort of create those fields. So we made sure we could select which images, we could select the order we wanted to bring them over, which was great. But it's really making sure the content in Open Asset is what you want to pull over because just like everything else, it's a connector. It's not it's bridging the gap between two systems. If the data in one system isn't right, it's not going to just magically get fixed as it, flows over to the new one. So I think, making sure your content is accurate and everything is in there that you want to show is the biggest way to prepare, in my opinion.
mm,
one of the things that we learned, one of the lessons we learned during the process is you definitely want to, as Melissa said, prepare. And one of the best ways to prepare, we found, was an Excel spreadsheet, putting together a list of everything that we wanted to update. And when it comes to projects, one of the priority things to have on that list as it relates to Open Asset is your project number. However you organize your project within your database system, that helps out a ton when it comes to finding those assets in Open Asset, searching for that project number. It made it so much easier as we moved our way through that Excel spreadsheet. And what was great about this version of the Excel spreadsheet is we didn't need to have all of the data for each project on there. I needed the name of the project, I needed the project number, and then potentially the market sectors that we wanted to assign it to, which is outside of Open Asset when we got to the actual website. But having all of that data in one spot, it allowed the six of us that were updating the website to all work from the same list because it was a
mm.
shared sheet. But then we could just go down the list and mark things off as we went. But the data that we needed to find what we needed in Open Asset was all there. It
Yeah,
worked.
that's
It
good.
worked really well. But it was all prep for sure.
Yeah,
It was prep.
yeah. Um, Patrick, Mel, what's on your wish list for Open Asset to add? It sounds like I'm going to put words in your mouth, Patrick, but a way to flag content as confidential so that you could sync it would probably be one of those things. But anything else that is on your wish list?
When it comes to open asset itself, I mean, it's meeting a lot of the needs that we have. There's it understanding that it's a brand new plugin and that we are, Toki and Martin are a bit of pioneers when it comes to having that launched. There's certain functionality and that may be now available that would be a blessing for sure, and the customization is one of those. Being able to reorganize the photos and how they load up,
Mm,
so that you have the priority photo up top versus the lower photo, in the bottom part of how it shows up on the web page, not in open asset, but when it's uploaded to the website,
right.
would be helpful, and a small time save.
Yeah.
We were able to work out that functionality with Toki during the development, so we can do that on our site. But it was something that Toki had to figure out for us to be able to put on the website. That would be two of the items for me for sure.
Yeah. Mel, anything you would add?
Yeah, I think, well, one of them I know is now a part of it, so I would be interested in hearing kind of more about the video integration that happened sort of after we launched Martin Martin, but that was a big one for me just because I think we're seeing a big shift in our clients being able, with the technology we have now with phones and just other stuff, being able to produce more video than, even 5 years ago. A lot of clients would, really shy away from, oh, we can't do video. We don't have the budget. We don't have the videographer, whatever. But now it's just so easy to produce, to have video assets, even if it's, a rendering someone puts together in an animation, being able to pull that over if that's stored in open asset. So it sounds like that's something that's being addressed or recently addressed.
Yeah, it's good. Eleni, I think that's a good segue into tell us a little bit about the roadmap for the future.
Yeah, definitely. First of all, appreciate the feedback. It's always helpful. I think, one thing our product team realized as they developed this is how unique each website really is. So we're always open to feedback. And I would say our product team has done a good job, like actually taking the feedback and changing the product. So a few examples, like you were kind of saying, Mel, is recently you have the ability to sync project videos directly from open asset to your WordPress. So that was launched, I think, in the past like week or so. Really new feature, which is exciting. You guys will have to try it out. Some other new features we recently launched were sync logs for just better tracking, the ability to sync text assets like your boilerplate, maybe testimonials or sustainability statements, case studies, things like that can be synced from open asset to WordPress, as well as multi-site networks and the ability to filter assets to different WordPress instances. So that's kind of a recap of things we've recently delivered based on feedback. I will say what's to come. I know the big thing that we're working on is a complete UI overhaul. So version 1 was actually launched yesterday, but continuing to work on the user experience and just making sure the connector feels like an extension of, our brand and our platform rather than just something in WordPress. So I know that's top of mind, but again, I'm gonna pass this feedback right to the product team and see what else changes.
Yeah, that's good. Um, as we think about, again, advice for others who might be doing this, is there anything that you wish that you had done differently during the implementation? If you could do it again, is there anything you might do a little bit differently?
For sure, for me, one of the things that we're working through right now is the organization of the projects. If I did it differently, we uploaded by market sector, and I would change the upload process to be upload by start date for the project so that the older projects end up lower than the newer projects.
Mm,
If I went back again, that we would for sure do it that way. Um, Honestly, I think that was probably the main thing that we would do related to that.
yeah. Mel, anything that you would have done differently?
I think in the case of it being sort of the first time we worked with the plugin, I think if we would have sort of started testing it out before even the pages were built with just sort of bare bones prototyping just to see how things came over, I think that might have helped even further sort of, getting us to a solution where we could pre-populate data that Martin could enter. I think, because it was something we hadn't used before, we wanted to wait until the pages were built to make sure we were connecting everything correctly. But I think a little bit earlier prototyping would have probably had that go a little bit smoother.
Mhm.
But honestly, I mean, every question that we had for Open Asset or anything we ever asked them, they were really willing to work with us and really responsive on. So that was great.
Yeah. Mel, you've worked on a lot of different sites and sites for different size companies. Martin's a larger site. Patrick, you said 230. I don't think that's the record for sites we've worked on, but it certainly is up there. Um, I think my question is, what type of firms would benefit from this kind of integration? Is this something that only large firms benefit from? Is this something that a smaller firm would benefit from? What's your take on that?
I think it really depends on the assets you have and, how much content you want to sort of bridge between, a digital asset management system and the website. Um, you know, as someone who has manually updated projects in a content management system, even 50 takes a long time. So, I mean,
Mm,
imagine how you multiply that, as Patrick said, 250. We've had clients that have had like 500. It's just an inordinate amount of time. So I really think, because you can have a smaller firm that, has a huge number of projects. You could have a larger firm that really wants to sort of curate what they show online. So it really depends on the amount of content you want to kind of bridge between the two systems, in my opinion.
mm.
What I
Um,
would say real fast, if I can add to
yeah,
that,
please.
though we're not, I wouldn't call us a large firm, but we're not a small firm either.
Right.
But we have, from a marketing staff, 0 full-time dedicated people to the website.
Mm,
All of us that work on the website all have other responsibilities, and the website is just one of those parts. And oftentimes, the other responsibilities take priority. And so, I would say I would recommend this to any AEC firm that does not have the ability to have full-time staff on the website. Even with the full-time staff, this would be a benefit, but if the website is just one of the many aspects that your marketing team does without the dedicated staff, it's a huge help and a huge benefit.
yeah. And Patrick, when you made the decision to use Open Asset integrated into the website, you were not yet a regular user of Open Asset. You were making a
Was
decision at the same time to onboard. So, and it sounds like the ability to connect the two was part of the deciding factor for what direction that you were going to go. Eleni, I think this question is probably for you. Um, you have a lot of clients who are using Open Asset today, but are obviously not using the connector. Um, can you talk a little bit about sort of adding the connector in? Have you had some experience with folks who have an existing website and have they added it after the fact because it's now available?
Yeah, definitely. Great question. I think it's probably about 50-50, honestly, on if people are just implementing the plugin to their current website or if they're, doing it with a new refresh or redesign. I think it can be valuable either way. Um, I honestly think like more likely than not, people are just implementing it into their current website. Um, yeah, and just really using it for a more automated approach.
Hmm.
I think, yeah, streamlining how it, like, updates the website can be really helpful for refreshes as well, though.
Yeah. Are you seeing any special things that people need to be aware of, either with their existing data in Open Asset or in the implementation into their website? So if I'm a longtime Open Asset user and I already have a WordPress website and I just want the benefit of being able to sync the data and get my projects in and what have you, are there any particular considerations that those folks should be thinking about?
Yeah, um I think in terms of open asset, like we're always here to help you with your data as well. So just coming to your customer success manager is always like a good starting point. But I think one thing to keep in mind is maybe the data that you're storing in open asset for your project sheets might be different than what you actually want to use on your website. Um, I know, Patrick, you had kind of referenced that earlier and having some custom fields. I think, again, just like chatting with your customer success manager about how to best set that up in Open Asset can be really helpful throughout the process.
Awesome. Well, this has been a fantastic conversation. I want to take a quick moment and see if there's any questions from folks that have joined us. You can either put those in the chat, or if you want to come off mute and just ask the question. Either way, we'll give them just a second. And while we're looking for any questions, I'm going to ask you in a second where we can catch up with you if people have questions and wanted to reach out. All right. Well, while we're waiting to see if there's any questions, Mel, let's start with you. If folks want to reach out and pick your brain about websites or integrating Open Asset into it, how can they reach you?
Sure. It's Melissa, Melissa, at TOKY, TOKY.com.
Awesome. And Patrick, if folks have questions about your experience and wanted to chat with you, how can they best find you?
Sure. It's first initial last name, so PTRAHERN at martinmartin.com.
Awesome. And then Eleni, I know you're at a lot of conferences. The team is at a lot of conferences, and folks can catch up with you at Amplify, as Julie said earlier. I'm certain some of the other regional SMPS and AIA and other kinds of conferences. But if they wanted to connect with you, what's the best way they can do that?
Yeah, definitely. As you mentioned, we'll be at all of those conferences, and we're always happy to connect. To reach me personally, my email is just my first dot last name at Open Asset. You can, of course, reach out on LinkedIn as well. Always happy to connect. And if you're interested in, learning more just about Open Asset as a whole, or the WordPress connector too, on the Open Asset website, there's always going to be a link to chat with someone. So don't be afraid to click it.
Awesome. Well, we'll put the contact information in the show notes. I just want to thank all of you for taking the time to share the experience that you had. Any last thoughts or words that you want to share with any of our viewers?
I will real fast. One thing to note on the process that we learned through it. Again, I would give 2 thumbs up, and if anybody wanted to reach out and get a not presented, perspective on Open Asset and the connector, feel free. But one thing to note, if you end up with 230 projects on your website, which you probably shouldn't, um, the syncing time when it comes time to sync between Open Asset gets longer because it wants to sync all of those projects. So
Mm.
don't get worried if it suddenly takes longer. It's going through 230, making sure that those 230 projects are actually on the site. So we saw that time grow as we progress through adding the projects to the site. But also, don't add 230 projects to your website. You'll be fine.
Awesome. Eleni, Melissa, anything else that you want to add?
Well, how do you convince your team that not to add that many? Because I've worked at 2 different firms and that does not happen. It's like, well, if they come to our site and they don't see X, I'm like, well, we must not specialize in that.
Oh, do you work with engineers? Because it sounds like you work with
Well,
engineers.
both, but
I
yes,
gotcha. Yes.
yes.
No, that is, if you can figure out a solution to that, please share it with me because I would love to express that. We've used analytical data. We've used, we've tried to point many different ways, but the argument that they always have is what if, somebody goes and they don't see it. So uh this is the best solution related to that.
Or the minute you get them convinced, right, to go that route, then all of a sudden somebody says, well, I didn't see so and so on your website. And it's just like,
Exactly.
oh my goodness. So, yeah,
Exactly. Yes.
yeah.
No.
So,
And Patrick, just to kind of chime in on your note about the sync, we actually just launched part of our new release is a smart sync where it only will sync the ones that you have made changes to. So
Amazing.
Look
Amazing.
at that,
Problem
Patrick. You
solved.
asked and
exactly.
received.
I
It,
know.
immediately.
There you go. That's service for you.
It
All
is
right,
incredible.
folks, thank you so much for taking the time. Julie, thank you for the question. And I think that wraps up TOKY Office Hours for March. We'll be coming at you next month. I believe we're going to be talking about copyright and naming. So that should be a good conversation. Thank you all, and we'll see you next time.
Awesome.
Thank you
Thanks,
so
everyone.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.